I'm Ian Baker, and I am joined by my good friend Connor, who is here today to show you how one of our retail product experts would install this system. So you're getting it right from the expert here. Connor, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it. So tell me, Connor, with this product, what kind of level of difficulty would you say this is? From 1 being the easiest, 5 being most difficult, where is this one falling?
So I wouldn't say anything is particularly difficult or challenging. It's really going to come down to your experience level. On a scale of 1 to 5, I would probably rate this one a 3, more of a moderate to challenging install. But again, nothing is difficult per se. It's just going to take you some time to set it up and get everything correctly. The more time you take to set this up, the better it's going to work for you.
Excellent. So on that note, speaking of time, what did you say this one takes on average, on an average person, not necessarily an expert like yourself?
Yeah. I would say on average, I would give yourselves around 2 to 3 hours just to make sure you're measuring everything properly and you're getting it set up to the best of your vehicle.
Okay, and I know for most weight distribution systems, right, there's some specialty tools that are going to be required. What kind of tools are we looking for this install?
Now here you're looking at the most common tools that are going to be used to install your weight distribution system. Starting with our torque wrench here, so this is going to be used to tighten the bolts which secure the weight distribution head to the shank. It's also going to be used to tighten the nut which secures the hitch ball to the ball platform. Now in regards to torquing your hitch ball, they do require quite a bit of torque, so you're going to need a heavy duty torque wrench for that. In regards to the socket size you're going to need, it's also going to be fairly large. Our particular hitch ball was 1 7/8, but yours may be different. Moving on here, we have a 1 1/16 inch socket. This is going to be used alongside the 1 1/8 wrench to tighten the bolts which secure the weight distribution head to the shank. And then we have a 3/4 inch wrench. This is going to be used to secure the bolts which hold the weight distribution brackets to the frame. And then last but not least, we have a tape measure and a paint marker.
All right, with the tools laid out, Connor, let's get into it. What's going to be our first step?
So 2 things I like to do to start is, number 1, make sure our trailer is level and our vehicle is next to it and we're both on a nice stable and flat surface, because we're going to be taking some measurements and any uneven pavement or concrete could affect those. But once we got everything set out in front of us, I like to go ahead and just get all the parts of our weight distribution system and sort of set them into place roughly on the trailer where we're going to be installing them.
When we get these, I mean, should we just be getting like the biggest arms possible? I mean, is just heavier always better?
Yeah, I definitely don't recommend that. There's actually going to be a couple different sizes of spring bars for this system here, and we want to make sure that we're choosing the ones that's rated for our trailer. Now, ideally, the tongue weight of our trailer, we really want it to be in the middle range of our weight distribution system. So make sure you're, number 1, choosing a system that's in the middle of that, but number 2, make sure you're accounting for the loaded tongue weight of our trailer. So when the manufacturer lists the tongue weight of our trailer, that's going to be for it empty. When you get everything loaded up and you're ready to travel down the road, you need to make sure you're accounting for that loaded tongue weight when you're choosing your weight distribution system. So now that we've found that flat surface, we're going to go ahead and level out our trailer. So we're going to be using the tongue jack for this, and there's actually a couple different ways we can check level. I actually just went ahead and used a tape measure because that's something everyone has. I just measured the back body line and the front body line and made sure they're as even as possible. You can also use a bubble level up here on the tongue. Now, a quick note, once we get our trailer level, we're actually going to be measuring from the ground to the top of the coupler. So we've got the trailer out of the way. Now we need to go ahead and measure our vehicle. So again, I can't stress this enough, make sure the surface that our vehicle on is nice and flat. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to measure the front and the rear. We're going to start at the rear here, but it doesn't really matter what you start with. We're going to be measuring from the ground, and then we want to pick a reference point. I always just like to do the center of the wheel well here at the bottom edge. So just go ahead and measure this now, and then you'll jot down that measurement. Now we're going to come up here to the front and do that same thing. So I will note that a weight distribution system, it's designed to get you back to level or as close as possible. Sometimes they can't always get you all the way back, and that's totally fine. But again, speaking earlier, we want to make sure that we choose the correct size system so we're not overdoing it and putting too much pressure on the front of the vehicle. So now we're ready to go ahead and dig into our installation here. I'm going to recommend we go ahead and get the shank ready along with our weight distribution head and our bag of bolts. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be setting the height of the hitch ball. So what's going to happen when we couple our trailer to our vehicle is that the vehicle is actually going to sag down a little bit. We want to make sure that we're installing the hitch ball at the proper height to compensate for this. Now in the owner's manual, they'll see in there that you need to install the hitch ball height 1/8 inch higher than the coupler height here on the vehicle for every 100 pounds of tongue weight.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Connor, that's a whole lot of numbers, bud. Help me break it down here. What are we looking at?
Yeah, it's actually quite simple. I totally get the confusion though. So let's take our hitch ball here for example. So we'll come over to the coupler here, and if you remember earlier, we measured to the top of the coupler. So say this trailer has 300 pounds of tongue weight. Therefore, we want to install the hitch ball onto the shank in the head of the vehicle so it's 3/8 inches higher than the height of the coupler. So we'll just simply measure up 3/8 inches, and that's the height we're going to be installing our hitch ball. Next, we're going to come to the rear of our vehicle here, particularly around the area where our trailer hitch receiver is, and we're going to be grabbing the shank of our weight distribution system along with the hitch pin. Now, basically, we want to determine if we're going to be installing this in the standard regular position or the inverted position. But if you want to know for sure how to do it at home, we're just simply going to measure from the ground to the top inside edge of the receiver tube. If that's lower than your coupler height, you know you're going to be installing this in the inverted position to give you a rise. But if it's more than the coupler height, you know you're going to be installing it in the standard position to give you a drop. Now, something that doesn't come in your kit that we will need is a hitch ball. And not just any hitch ball will work. Number one, we need to make sure that we're using the correct diameter for our trailer. Ours in this case is a 2 5/16 inches. We also need to make sure that the shank of our hitch ball is going to be 1 1/4 inches. And not only that, the length of the shank cannot exceed 2 5/8 inches. So go ahead and make sure you have the correct hitch ball, and then we can proceed to the next step. So once you got that hitch ball picked out, go ahead and tighten and torque it to your weight distribution system head. And now we're ready to install this entire assembly onto our adjustable shank. So in order to do this, we're going to be using our 3/4 inch hex bolts. You can see the 2 holes on the side here. One's going to go on the bottom, one's going on the top. Now, you'll notice on the shank here, there's going to be multiple sets of adjustment holes, and this is going to allow us to achieve the proper height that we need. CURT refers to this as the target height. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply mock this up here, install the bolts, and then I'm going to measure till I can get that target height. You may not get it exactly, but you just want to use the closest set of holes that allow you to get as close as possible. Now, real quick, before we lift this up on here and secure it to the shank, we just want to make note of the 2 different size hex bolts you have. The smaller one is going to be used in the bottom hole, and the larger one is going to be used in the top. So you can see we got the weight distribution head here secured loosely to our shank. You'll actually notice that I went ahead and flipped the shank in the other way. Initially, I thought we were going to be installing it in the inverted position, but in order to get closest to that target, I went ahead and just reverted it. And I can see here that this is going to allow us to get as close to that target height as possible. So you may need to play with this a little bit to get that correct setting, but again, you just want to get as close to that target as possible. So now that we have everything where we want it, we're going to go ahead and take one hand here and hold on to the hitch ball. You're going to grab one of these little spacer blocks that come in your kit. We're going to remove this hex bolt here, making sure it's supported so this doesn't just fall down. We're going to take this spacer and install it so that it's in this hole at the top and then the middle hole at the bottom. So we're going to set that in there. Hopefully it doesn't fall. And then just reinstall our hex bolt. Now at this stage, we're going to go ahead and snug up our nuts here just to sort of hold everything together, make sure that these don't move on us. Like just there, it's actually moved on us, so I'm going to make sure it's back in the correct position before we tighten it down. Now, this is the part where you are going to need some larger tools to get this done. We're going to be using an impact just because we're in the shop and we have the luxury of doing so, but a standard ratchet, socket, and wrench is going to work great for you guys as well. And again, we're not going to be over tightening this. We just want to snug it up because we could be adjusting it, which would require loosening. Next, we're going to be installing our spring bars into the spring bar sockets here on the weight distribution head. Now, real quick here, the spring bars, there's going to be 2 different sides to them. One of them has the hole, one of them has the sticker. For this step here, we just want to make sure we're choosing the one with the hole. It's actually going to line up with the hole in the side of our spring bar socket. So we're going to take a linch pin that comes in your kit here. It really doesn't matter which way you place them. I like to put them so the end of the pin is facing in, but you'll just simply insert the spring bar into the head and then secure it with the linch pin. As far as going over the top or under the bottom, again, really doesn't matter. I'm just going to be going over the top. Same thing on the other side here. Now, if you want to make sure that sticker faces up, that'll probably be a good idea, so just make sure it's not this way, but again, not a huge deal. So now we're actually ready to couple our trailer to the vehicle here. So we're gonna obviously have to go ahead and raise the tongue jack just to get the coupler up a little bit higher because we had it level earlier. Now, if you don't have a backup camera on your vehicle, I definitely recommend a spotter, especially the first time you're hooking this up. The distances are a little bit different and we don't want to damage anything. Now, once we get it lined up here and we have it aligned, I'm going to go ahead and lower the trailer jack. We don't want to take all the weight off the jack, but we do want to do it enough so that we can couple the latch. So just lower it enough that you can close this and we're good. So now that we have that latched engaged and the coupler is actually holding on to the hitch ball, what we're actually going to do is we're going to be using the tongue jack to pick up the back of the vehicle here a little bit because that's going to assist us when we're attaching the spring bars. So the owner's manual recommends approximately 3 inches to raise the trailer. So now we're going to come back a few feet from the coupler here, and basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be marking on the frame where our frame brackets are going to sit. Now, thankfully, CURT has done all the hard work for us because they've made a mark on their spring bar here, so we don't have to worry about measuring. I'm just going to sort of eyeball that line they have up into the top of the frame. I'm going to use a paint marker, anything you have to make a mark there, and that's where our frame brackets are going to go. So we're going to go ahead and lay out 3 of our channel brackets. 3 of these are actually going to all install in this frame here. We'll show you how that's done. We're also going to need our carriage bolt. So there is a difference between these brackets. They're all the same length, but 2 of them are going to be narrower, or one of them is going to be a little bit larger. So what we're actually going to do is, number 1, make sure that we're working with the top that only has 1 hole. So these are actually going to sandwich around the frame like so. So these ridges are actually going to be pointing out. So we'll go ahead and do that now. And then this final bracket here is actually going to be coming over it like this. So it's actually going to fit in that little groove. So let's just go ahead and mock this up as best we can. We'll start by placing the carriage bolt through that top hole like so. Coming back with our other bracket, placing it inside there just like that. And now we'll just go ahead and set this over the top of the frame. I'm going to be placing it at the center of my mark. And then on the other side, we're going to come back with our nut. We're just going to loosely thread it on. That should hold everything in place for now. Next, we're going to grab an L bracket along with one of our carriage bolts, and we're basically just going to be sliding this bracket with this angled piece facing out in between these 2 plates that we just installed previously. Now we're going to be sliding it all the way up and installing it in the next closest hole to the bottom of the frame, the one that's open, because keep in mind, we do have these extension brackets here. Your process may vary a little bit depending on which bracket you're using, but just make sure it also aligns with the holes in the back as well. Next, we're going to go ahead and take a wrench and tighten and torque these fasteners to the specifications in the instructions. So now that we have these steps complete, we're just going to simply repeat these on the other side. So now we're going to be installing the tension bars onto the L brackets. Now these are under tension, so we are going to need our tool here that comes in the kit. Basically how that works is the spring bar is going to sit on top of here, and this is actually going to line up with the little hole in our L bracket. So we're going to pull the spring bar away to give us room. Lift the handle up until it snaps into place. Once we've done that, we'll come back with our L pin here, place it through the hole, and then secure it with our cotter pin. So now that we have our spring bar set, we're actually going to go ahead and lower our tongue jack so the vehicle is supporting the full load of our trailer. So we now have our vehicle supporting the trailer, so we're going to go ahead and retake those measurements that we did earlier at the front and rear of the vehicle. So what we're looking for is we're looking to get as close to level as possible. However, we don't want to overdo it. Now, if we have less of a measurement up front than we did originally, that lets us know that it's putting more pressure on the front than we want. And in which case, we're actually going to disassemble the bottom here of our brackets, and we're going to be lowering this L bracket down 1 notch, and then we'll recheck our measurements. However, if we don't have enough weight being transferred forward to the front, we'll need to go ahead and adjust the head tilt spacers on our weight distribution head, which is what we're going to be doing next. So if we do need to increase the spring bar tension of our system, it's pretty easy to do. We're going to go ahead and lift the trailer back up with the jack, and we will loosen these 2 nuts here. This is going to allow us to pull out the head tilt spacers and align them in a different slot. Now there are multiple slots here. There's multiple adjustments you can make. I recommend looking at your owner's manual, because they're going to give you the best guide of this in regards to how much tension you need. It's going to be different for each trailer and vehicle. Now, once we do get the correct head tilt setting for our vehicle and trailer, all we need to do is make sure it matches on both sides, then go ahead and tighten and torque these 2 bolts here to the manufacturer's specifications. And now the last thing we have to do is simply take a grease gun here, and on the back of our spring bar pockets, we're going to have a Zerk fitting. We're just going to pump a couple shots of grease into each of these.
All right, looking good. Thanks, Connor. And there you have it. With a little bit of time, some elbow grease, some specialized tools, you can hook up your weight distribution hitch right at home. Now, if you're like me and you would prefer to have a specialized expert do it, you can always bring it in to your local Camping World. Connor, I appreciate the work, buddy. I think I'm going to hop in the Jeep and take off my new 17B. Thanks, everyone.